Welcome to Breaking Bread Podcast with your hosts, Chelsea Passon
and Dayna Black. You're watching episode 4 of season 1, Moments of Miracles.
Now let's break bread together. So these past couple of episodes, I've kind of given more of my backstory of God's hand in my life and the moments of miracles he's brought me through. What about you? I kind of want to know your past and pick your brain about the moments God has brought you through and you're like, wow, God, that's awesome.
I feel like my entire life has been a wow, God, you're awesome. Really, every year it's something new. But the story about really how I met Jesus was an incredible story. I was born in a Christian family, so my parents, they're saved. And, I was taught all the right things, Right. It was a really awesome upbringing. But at a very young age, I actually gripped on to unforgiveness. So I was dancing at a studio and I was so passionate about it. And I remember there was something happening at the studio and my parents ended up taking me out of dancing and not really giving me a clear reason as to why. And so in my head, I'm like, they're just stripping me from what I love. I had no idea. I was so young. I was, I don't know, probably 13, 14, 15, something around that, like mid-teenager. And I wasn't told why I was being taken out, but my parents thought I was too young to really know kind of what was happening at the time. So anyways, I just thought, like I said, that they were stripping me from something that I really love, and I didn't understand it. And I definitely did not forgive my parents for that. And, when unforgiveness sets in, it's just a really strong root and it will wreck your life. And so kind of going into my later teenage years, I was very, very reckless. And I was out the house by 17, 18. And
out the house?
I was out the house.
Like your parents get you out or what?
Yes. I was given a choice.
Oh, really?
Yeah, my parents sat down with me and they were like, you can either change your ways or you have to go.
Oh, wow.
And I was too far in to just be like, okay, yeah, let me just be this little perfect angel. It was really deep. I was starting to influence my brothers. I have 2 younger brothers. And, I was not a good influence on their lives. And I think they could tell that, my brothers were starting to be a little bit more rebellious. And I played a huge part in that. I mean, I was their older sister. So when it got to that point, it was like, okay, now she's affecting the other kids in the house. We need to just let this be it. So anyways, I decided to leave. I quickly moved out and
where did you go?
I went to Hammond.
Where did you go in Hammond?
I lived in a house, a trap house, literally. I lived in a house and I had 3 or 4 other girls living there. And, it got really bad. It did. I'm going to be honest. And I guess I don't want to go into too much details just yet, but it was bad. I mean, it was a lot of drug and alcohol abuse. It was, living so reckless, making really, really bad decisions. And then on top of the actions that were wrong, my heart was so horrible.
Far from God.
It was so far from God. And not only was it far from God, I was severely depressed. It was just crazy. I don't even know how to explain it. Crying myself to sleep all the time. Isn't that crazy? I was numb. So, and no one knew that. When I was out and about, I wasn't this emotional person.
Put that smiley face on.
Emotional at all. I don't want to say I was smiley, but I was this tough girl in front of everyone. But I was so broken on the inside. When I tell you, I had no desire. I didn't know what I was doing with my life. All I did was party and do horrible things and then fall asleep. Very not sober every night. Wow. I was just wasting my life away. And there was so many things that happened that was just how am I even alive? It even got to the point where I was very, very close to overdosing. I was in the hospital several times just from passing out. I remember one time I was in my bed and my heart was hurting. Like it was, I thought I was gonna have a heart attack. It was killing me. And I didn't know what it was. And I remember I called my mom and I'm like, hey, like nobody's home. Like no one was home at the time. And I was up in Hammond. I was like, I really need you to take me to the hospital. I can't move. Like, I think I'm having a heart attack. Like, I was paralyzed in my bed. And sure enough, it was just like very close to an overdose. Like, just all these things that were happening. It was like I was so young. And when people would ask me in the past, like, you know, you grew up in such a good home. Like, why did you end up taking that path? And it's like, unforgiveness.
I feel that. Well, I also don't think it's just, I guess in your situation it was unforgiveness, but if you look back at me and like the stuff that I've said in my episodes, how I've like lived for myself for the longest time, I grew up in a Christian household. Yeah. My parents brought us to church all the time. We talked about the Bible and did little Bible studies in our house and whatnot, but like it just goes to show you like you can train up a child as much as you can, but at a certain age, they have to choose it. Mm-hmm. Like, it doesn't matter how much you bring them to church, how much Bible stuff they know. They have to choose to want Jesus.
Right.
But back to your story, I want to know, like, how did you get into that? Was there, like, your friends just influenced you a lot? Or?
You know, I've thought a lot about this over the years. Like, how did I really end up in that lifestyle? And when I think back, this is so horrible to even say, but when I look back, like, I played a huge part in my friends even getting into some of that stuff. Like I remember my neighbor was a few years older than me. I was like a child, and I would like go get him to go to the store and just get me things that I wanted, like, you know, cigarettes and alcohol, just things like that. And I remember I was the one that was like, try this. And I'm like, how did I get to that? But I will tell you, and I'm going to keep saying this over and over again, that it really is unforgiveness. Like I did not ever see my life going in that direction. But as soon as I let that unforgiveness set in, it was like everything that my parents ever said to me over the years. Anybody that I thought loved me or that I loved them, that was like wiped away completely because someone hurt me that I loved or I thought I could trust, and for no reason. Like, it was just such a confusing time and things weren't clarified. So I was like, oh no. So it didn't matter if, you know, if I trusted them in the past or if I loved them, their family. It was like, you're dead to me kind of thing, you know? So I think when that sets in and you really are like, I'm going to do whatever the heck I want to do, I don't know. And, you know, they say sin, I'm sure you've heard this before, like sin takes you farther than you want to go. It keeps you longer than you want to stay, and it costs you more than you want to pay. As soon as as soon as the mindset switches and you're like, oh no, like I'm doing whatever I want to do, especially as a young child, like there's nothing stopping you. If you're not taking in the advice from your parents and honoring them and respecting them, like you're just really making unwise decisions.
I'm sure it was hard to stop because I think I either read something or watched something that was like, there's a reason why people fall into sin so easily, because it's so enticing. Yeah. Like if it wasn't, it would not be an addiction or something hard to break if it wasn't enticing and like intriguing to you. Right. So I'm sure like what happened to you, like after going through that craziness of getting addicted and like almost dying, almost having a heart attack. What happened after that?
So it was, okay, let me think back. So I was around 20 years old. And that's when it was really, really starting to get bad. I would be waking up the next day not knowing what happened, you know, the night before, and starting to get into harder drugs, things that definitely, it's not like just the typical stuff. So it was getting really, really bad. And I remember, you know, my mom, she was praying in the background for years and years and years. And there was things that were starting to click, and it's like, I should really be dead by now. Something is up. Like, something is really up. How am I not dead by now? Like, that's really the point that it was in. And, you know, my mom, talking back to my parents now, you know, she's explained to me the seasons that I was in that were the hardest is when she was praying the hardest, and it was like the Lord would wake her up in the middle of the night and she would be just praying for me. I know. And she would check on me. She would be texting me. She'd be praying for me. And one time she FaceTimed me, and I don't know, we typically don't FaceTime. I don't know what happened, but I answered and my face was like all beaten up because I had passed out one day and I fell and I had to go get stitches in my mouth, and she didn't know I was at the hospital. I almost overdosed again, and it was crazy. So my face was like all beaten up, and she was like, "What happened?" And I was like, "I don't know."
That's scary.
It was crazy. So that is when I think she was like, okay, I'm going to have to pray harder. Like this is getting to where I need to start praying. And I remember thinking back in that moment, like these things that are happening, there's like, God is protecting me for some reason. Like I always knew that God was there. I grew up in church. I knew he was there. I was deliberately disobeying him.
You just had him on the back burner like, all right, God, adios. I'm going to go live my life. You can come in randomly.
Yeah. And I mean, like, again, they say that, your earthly parents really are the example. They say the thing with the father, if you don't have a good earthly father, it's kind of hard for you to like believe in the heavenly father and to just relate that relationship. And so again, I'm like, I knew he's there, and I had a relationship when I was like a child, but because I didn't forgive my parents, like my earthly parents, and I felt like they had done me really wrong. It was like the God in heaven. I can't trust him either. Like it was just hard to relate that. So I started to realize, okay, there is something. God is protecting me. Like this is impossible. Like I had two friends
I've been doing too much. I should be dead right now.
Like I had two friends that overdosed, and it's like, how am I alive right now doing the things that I'm doing? So
this is like close friends, like people who you were in the group with.
Kind of like they were close friends. I mean, I wouldn't say they were in my group, but close enough for it to be.
I was gonna say it's hard to like try to get out of situations like that, especially when the people around you and who are close friends or family, whatever, who are in that group with you. It's hard to leave that because not only are you leaving that addiction, you're leaving people behind. Yeah,
it definitely was a rough time, but throughout it all, my mother's prayers came in clutch for that time.
Yeah, thank you, Lord.
Like I always made it home safe if I was driving.
Wow.
My record is clean.
I was like, I'm just a little tipsy, but we got home safe.
My record is clean. Don't know how, but I have a clean record. Like it's just all by the grace of God. His hand was over my life that entire time. And, we'll talk about this for the next episode. I'll kind of share how really my story with coming to Christ again. But everything that happened before Christ, I should not be alive, and it's just really cool seeing how throughout all those years, prayers are so important.
Right.
They really are. It's like when you have something on your mind, if the Lord puts somebody on your mind, don't ignore it. Like you need to stop what you're doing right then and there and pray for that person. And, I'm more sensitive to that now because I know my mom answered any call. Like every time the Lord put me on her, and I'm sure I'm saying my mom, it really is my whole family, my grandparents, my aunts, uncles, my dad. I know everyone was praying for me, but I remember my mom saying, she'd be woken up in the middle of the night and she would be praying for me. So it's like, knowing that and knowing all of the protection that I had throughout those years makes me a lot more sensitive. If somebody's on my mind, I'm like, oh, this is a reason like the Lord put this on my mind to pray for them.
Yeah, he does that. There's been multiple times where I've like randomly thought about someone from my past, and then like I distinctly remember there was this girl I went to church with who I had one day just randomly thought about her. I was like, oh, I wonder how she's doing. And then like days later she messaged me. I was like, this is so weird. So weird. This was before awesome. I was like, saved again. Yeah. But so after your mom picks you up and she brought you to the hospital.
Yeah.
What happened? Like, did you ever figure out what that was, or? Just overdose, I'm assuming.
The doctors couldn't figure out what it
Oh.
was. So they asked me if I was using anything. And I said, yeah, I don't think I told them what I was using. But it was kind of just like this understanding, okay, like your lifestyle is making you almost have a heart attack. You know what I mean? Like it wasn't like it was kind of just like your lifestyle is pretty much all your organs are going to shut down if you continue this lifestyle. That kind of thing. It was like an understanding that everyone in the room were like,
you need to
okay,
change.
like, yeah.
Did it hit you and you're like, okay, I need to change, or did you just go
No.
back to do it? You just went back. You just went back to go doing the same stuff.
Yes. I'm the only reason I am alive is because of Jesus Christ. Like
right? He said, I'm not done with you.
His grace. Like if before, it just didn't click. And honestly, I don't even think I cared if I lost my life. Like I was just really depressed. I was insecure. Like I definitely had like an eating disorder. Like I was like 100 pounds. It was just really crazy. Everything. And that's what the enemy does. He gets in your mind. He strips you of any kind of confidence or dreams or desires or aspirations, excitement, of joy. Like he strips that. And that's what he wants. He wants you to be hopeless and miserable and kill yourself. And that's literally, I wouldn't have killed myself. But I think at that point, it was like, I didn't care if my behaviors changed. Like I had nothing to live for.
Right.
When you don't have anything to live for,
yeah,
then why would you change? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like that's why people today, they're walking around without any purpose. Like they don't know why they were created. They have no excitement or dreams or goals because they don't know why they were created. They have no purpose in life.
But you knew because you grew up in the I guess Christian household.
Yes.
Was there any times you were like, okay, I need to really clean up and go back to God, and then you had the enemy like, you're too dirty. You can't do that. You did this. Because I know there's been times where I'm like, before I gave my life to Jesus again, these past couple months in midsummer, whatever, there have been times where like, I've done so much. Like, why? Like, why would he forgive me? Like, why do I deserve it? I've done this. And then it was the enemy, of course, bringing up my past, being like, yeah, God can't forgive you, but he can. Yeah. Was there times that you've had that when you were
there was never a time that I was like hoping or like contemplating going back to Jesus.
Really?
No, there wasn't. I will say though, when I was in rough situations, I would always pray. Like I was like, Lord, like if you can get me out of this, like I will serve you. And then I didn't.
I was going to say.
Then I didn't. He saved me. He got me out of whatever situation. And then I just went back to living I was definitely using him. It's so horrible to even say. But it was kind of like whatever's in it for me.
That's a lot of people. That's a lot of people nowadays. They're just like, oh, God, I only want you when you can benefit me. But like, adios, I don't want to talk to you ever again until I need you again. And it's heartbreaking because it's like he wants that deep relationship with you. Yeah. He wants to know you. He wants to take care of you. He wants to take your dirty rags, your sackcloth, and just strip you of that dirt and pick you up out of the miry clay and be like, you are mine. You're created for much, much more. Yeah. Like, I'm sure like that didn't happen to you at all. You're just like, wait, God, actually, like, I want you. I want to come back again.
So stay tuned for the next episode because I will be sharing how I came back to Jesus. And it is such a beautiful story. I can't wait to share it with you guys.